For the past 15 years, one place has loomed larger in my mind than any other: Alaska. When my daughter was small, I'd put her to bed and spend the evenings watching Discovery Channel shows like Deadliest Catch and Ice Road Truckers. Then came Into the Wild, the story of Christopher McCandless, who set off on the adventure of all adventures, only to meet his fate in the Alaskan wilderness. There was Grizzly Man too, which, despite its eccentricity and tragic ending, offered a raw glimpse of Alaska's untamed wildlife and epic landscapes. No wonder they call it the Great Land. I resolved that one day I too would visit, though hopefully not share the fate of McCandless or Timothy Treadwell. But I did want a glimpse of what they had experienced, and so I made my way to Vancouver to begin a 9-night itinerary aboard Oceania Cruises Riviera. The route was perfectly pitched: Alaska cruise must-sees like Juneau and Ketchikan, paired with a few surprises along the way. Vancouver itself is a worthy starting point for any Alaskan adventure. A cool, contemporary city with a scenic backdrop, a beautiful waterfront, and the artsy, slightly bohemian Granville Island, just a 2-minute water taxi away. I spent 2 nights at the Hyatt in the city centre, which gave me time to adjust to the time difference and take a tour of Grouse Mountain and Capilano. While I'll admit I'm not a fan of cable cars, they're a necessary evil if you want to visit the Brown Bear Sanctuary at the summit. Bears are perhaps Alaska's most iconic wildlife attraction, but sightings are never guaranteed. I reasoned that at the very least I'd leave the Pacific Northwest having seen one. And so to Alaska, but not before a day sailing through British Columbia, heading towards the much fabled Inside Passage. I'd slightly overestimated how well I'd adjusted to the time difference, so at around 4:30 AM I found myself wide awake, sitting out on the balcony and taking in my first glimpse of true wilderness. There was no doubt, this is what I had come for. An hour passed in near silence before fins began slicing through the water. Pacific dolphins, my first taste of real Alaskan wildlife, and I wasn't even really there yet. The Inside Passage weaves through the islands and inlets of southeastern Alaska. Nearly every itinerary includes at least one day traversing it, and the views were breathtaking to say the least. Dense emerald green forests, snow-capped mountains, and on the following morning, a belt of mist so thick it felt as if we'd crossed over into some kind of mystical ether. And then it happened. It's hard to explain what it's like when you see your first whale, even more so when that whale seems intent on putting on a show, leaping from the water at regular intervals as if to welcome you to his world. Like bears, whales are a cornerstone of any Alaska trip. By the end of the itinerary, I believe I'd seen around 15 whales, sometimes 5 or 6 in a single day. I'll say it confidently, they're about as close to guaranteed as it gets. Fusing indigenous heritage and frontier spirit, Ketchikan is proudly known as Alaska's first city, often the first port of call as you sail north. Creek Street's stilted houses and the towering totems of Saxman Village are among its most famous landmarks, but the small streets are just as rewarding for those with a curiosity for native Alaskan art, gold rush lore, and of course local brewing, something that I put to a thorough test. If I had one recommendation, it would be to visit Dee's Fish and Chip Shack. You'll have the best fish and chips you've ever tasted, and that's coming from someone who's had more than their fair share of the British equivalent. Docking at Ward Cove East, Ketchikan's impressive new cruise terminal, we joined a guided hike through the Tongass National Forest before heading into the city. It wasn't quite as strenuous or as wild as I might have hoped, but it was a gentle introduction to the kind of wilderness I'd come looking for. Bonus points to our guide, who came armed with bear spray, a sure sign they might be nearby. The forest itself is lush and primeval, with towering cedars, dense undergrowth and thick moss carpeting everything in sight. Along the trail, tree trunks were lined with bite marks, clear evidence that bears had been around. Another promising sign, but no luck this time. Juneau followed the next day. More cosmopolitan and vibey than Ketchikan's old school charm, Alaska's capital is more than just another port town. For many visitors, the real draw here is to see the Mendenhall Glacier. Receding at a rapid rate, there's no time like the present to witness this spectacular work of nature. If you can't justify the cost of a helicopter landing, a trip by native canoe is the next best thing. Rowing across Mendenhall Lake against the current, we passed Nugget Falls and found ourselves facing the icy spill itself. Silence fell, broken only by the sweep of paddles through the water and the distant rumble of the falls. Alaska is home to more than a few notable glaciers, but Mendenhall is the daddy of them all. If you want to feel small, insignificant, and entirely at the mercy of nature's grandeur, this will do it. Back in the city, a late departure gave us the chance to experience one of Juneau's most talked about food stops, Deckhand Dave's. An open-air setup with a live band, a few local beers, incredible fish tacos and a fantastic easygoing atmosphere is the kind of place where making new friends for the night comes naturally. You'll feel at home, maybe even grounded, but a glance up at the surrounding mountains will remind you you're definitely not in Kansas anymore.
I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Next up was Haines, perhaps the first real glimpse of how remote and cut off life can be for some of Alaska's coastal communities. Tourism undoubtedly plays its part, but there's a quiet resilience to the town. It feels charming and independent, a place where life ticks along at its own rhythm, far from the noise of the world. Another hike awaited, this time to Battery Point via a trailhead that began on the edge of the Chilkat State Park. We were met by our two guides, both armed with bear spray and energy drinks, a reassuring if slightly surreal combination. This was much more to my liking, a real stretch of trail. We crossed streams, scrambled over boulders, and eventually spilt out through the undergrowth onto a desolate bay. It was here that I had my most profound experience. Emotion and travel are strange companions. Technically all travel comes with emotion, but its intensity varies. For me, standing on a rocky outcrop, hearing the sudden blow of a humpback whale close by, I was jolted into a moment I've only experienced once before in my life. My heart kicked into gear, I rushed up to the highest point of the rocks and just in time to see the adult humpback breach the surface, no more than 20 metres from where I stood. It lingered there, almost motionless, resting just beneath the surface, and for a second, no more, I stared into one of its eyes. Just an incredible experience. At what point did it stop becoming amazing? It didn't really. Wrangell might have been the least dramatic stop, a small, hard-scrabble fishing town tucked between forest and sea, but that contrast was part of its charm. A glimpse of real Alaskan life where people have lived off the land for generations without ever feeling the need to exploit it into something else. Leaving Wrangell, we sailed south, bound for our last stop at Victoria on Vancouver Island, almost back to where we'd started. Victoria itself offers much for the day visitor, though an extra night wouldn't have hurt. The city centre is charming, with British colonial influences evident in the architecture, especially the Parliament building and the Empress Hotel. We didn't make it to the renowned Butchart Gardens, but Victoria was a gentle way to re-enter the world after what had sometimes felt like an otherworldly adventure. As someone who's long been captivated by the idea of exploring Alaska, the experience left an indelible mark on me. You can scratch an itch, but sometimes you ignite something deeper. This won't be my last time in the last frontier. Going further north definitely appeals, perhaps to Yukon or Fairbanks. Maybe not by ship next time, but I'll find my way up there before my time is up. And if you've ever considered your own journey to Alaska, take this as your sign. Go. You'll discover a place that offers all the best things travel can give us. Awe-inspiring landscapes, extraordinary wildlife, rich culture, deep history, and a way of life that feels fiercely in tune with nature. Modern life has a way of closing in, but in Alaska you'll breathe differently. You'll remember your first lungful of Alaskan air, the sound of a whale's blow echoing across the water, or, if you're lucky, a bear moving through the forest. Distant enough to be safe, but close enough to share a moment. And sometimes that's all it takes.